Handyman Dan here with the You Can Build This YouTube channel. We're going to be building some custom shelves for my wife. And my wife didn't want just any shelves. She wanted some fancy shelves. So we're going to make them out of hardwood walnut to give our entryway some more color. I'm very glad I saved all this wood, but to get it all down is a pain. One day I'm going to have a shop. One day. But today is not that day. I do love the smell of walnut though. Oh, so good. I have to rest it on top of my garage door to get it out. It's got a gnarly splinter. That's right. Making shelves like these is easier than you think if you have a couple tools. But if you don't have some of the fancy tools that I have, you can still do it by hand. It just might take you a little bit longer. But one thing's for sure, these shelves are gonna last for a very long time and are definitely a conversation starter. I've got my two shelves here. They're both 48 inches long. My wife doesn't want the shelf to be this wide. Plus I've got some pretty messed up parts right here. I'm probably gonna rip them about 5.5 inches wide. That's plenty for what she wants. I've got a full piece that's 24 inches long. I'm gonna cut these up. I wanted to make these corbels a little bit bigger. I don't know if I have enough. What's 24 divided by 8? 2, 4, 6, 8. I need 4 corbels. I wanna make each corbel 2 pieces thick. I need 16 pieces. This is making my brain kind of hurt. Project update. We will not be going with any of the designs I came up with on the whiteboard. Instead, we're going to be going with this one. It's a lot bit more tricky. On this one, I could have just gone on the bandsaw and wham bam, you're done. This one though is a little bit more tricky because I have to go straight down and over. I still think I can get a lot done on the bandsaw, but I'll have to be a little bit more strategic with my cuts. Wish me luck. We've got our 2 pieces of walnut here. Now I'm gonna cut them to their final height, which is 5 inches. I absolutely love cutting walnut. It smells so good. Personally, I think it is one of the best smelling woods out there. I kind of like oak. Maple is okay. I don't like the smell of mahogany when it's getting cut. I don't want to have to measure 5.5 inches every single time. I'm going to set up a stop block right here. I'm going to measure 5.5 inches. This is where my saw blade comes down. I'm going to move my block right here, and I'm going to clamp my block to my saw fence on the outside so that when my board pushes against this, my clamp will stop it from moving. This way, I will not have to measure every single piece. I moved it a little bit. This is actually 5 5/8, so adjust this a little. That's 5.5 right there. Now we can start cutting, and we won't have to worry about measuring every single piece. It's a big time saver to make a stop block. 1 corbel, 2 corbels, 3, 4. I cut an extra one, 5, just in case. This can kind of be my practice one. Gluing these up is going to be pretty simple. The only thing I want to make sure is that the grain is going in opposite directions. If I don't, then these could potato chip later on. You can see the grain is curving this way. So on this one, I want to flip it that way. Now they're going in opposite directions. 2. I always like to save my cutoff pieces because they make great glue spreaders. I'm just going to apply enough glue to where it's oozing out everywhere. I don't need to skimp on the glue here. This works great at spreading the glue out. I love these bar clamps because you can really crank on these. These are made by Bessie. Then you just get some 3/4 inch pipe. It's important to put them on top and bottom so you can get equal clamping pressure. I'm gonna try and get away with just one on the top though. But yeah, you can clamp it down with 2 hands. This is awesome. My thermometer says it's about 52 degrees out here, so it's a little too cold for the glue. I keep this inside so that it always stays room temperature, but I don't want to keep this out here. I want to put it inside the house so that it cures a little faster. And then while these are curing inside, I can start working on the shelf. Now I'm going to cut these down to 5 1/4 inches, and that's basically only because I've got this huge tear out here. But realistically, my wife doesn't want super wide shelves either. We've got our blocks back. I wonder if this is how Thor felt carrying Mjolnir. Pretty dang heavy. This has been drying for a couple hours now. While it was drying, I did a little proof of concept, and it turned out so good. I'm so excited about this. Overall, I was able to get these curves done really nicely. And then this inside one was the best because I was able to put it on my new Spindle Sander and it sanded it super smooth. These outside curves are going to be a bear to sand, but we'll figure it out. Take this out of the clamp, get it going. We can start machining these. I've got my block here and then I've got my template now. I can put that on there and then trace it. Now I can take this to my bandsaw and cut it out. What's also nice about having so much cut out of this is if I have some bad wood like this knot, it will get cut out. I did the first one with a Sharpie so that you could see it, but I'm going to do all these other ones with pencil because honestly I shouldn't have done it with a Sharpie. Now I have to sand that out. So that might be my throwaway piece now. When I glued it up, some of these slipped a little bit. I'll sand those out on my sander sander later. Trying to make sure that I'm marking at least the smaller side. If I was to mark the bigger side, when I sand it, this one would sand like 1/8 of an inch off the back side. And this lip, instead of being this size, it would be 1/8 of an inch smaller. So I don't want that. I do want to try and put it at the top of the shortest piece, like this one. If you've never used a bandsaw before, it might be kind of confusing on how I'm going to cut this. So I'm just going to draw it out with this Sharpie so you can see. Anywhere where it's straight, I'm just going to do a straight cut with my bandsaw. Straight cut there, straight cut there. For these parts, I'm going to do a straight cut here, and I'm going to do a straight cut there, and then I'm going to do a straight cut here and a straight cut here. That'll get out all of this material and all of this material. It'll give me access to start cutting this curve. Once I get this curve, I will also have access to this curve right here, and then I'll have access to this curve. I'm not going to be super critical about trying to get this perfect. I'll try and get as close as I can for these two curves, and then I'll have to just hand sand them. And then for this one, I'll put it on my oscillating spindle sander to get that nice curve. I was a little nervous about how this would go being 2 boards thick. It went super well. It's better to go slow so you get smoother cuts. I didn't go super slow right here, and so I am going to have to sand that. Right here, this is much better than even my template, and this is a lot smoother than my template. Slower and more smooth you can go, the less sanding you're going to have later on. 1 down, 3 more to go. The bandsaw isn't perfectly flat, so I do have some lips here and there. Usually means you just got to turn the piece over, try and get to it better. See how it went a little bit shallower there, and it went deeper there, so I'm just going to flip it over and clean it up.
Okay, let's turn it on.
Hey. Smooth. Let's take a look at it. Yep. Keep going.
It's smooth, all right.
Don't push so hard here. I want it to be a square edge. Go this way now. This spindle sander is incredible. I don't know what I have done without it. Trying to sand this by hand would take forever. Sanding this by hand is going to take forever too, but I don't know any way to get around that. But I'm going to have to fill that in later. Dang it! It got dusty all of a sudden. My vacuum died. I need to put a new battery in it. I just had a thought, but I'm not sure. If it works, it's going to beat trying to sand that thing by hand. Problem is, I have to hoist this thing up, and it's not light. Okay. This has metal. This is a very thin strip here. I'm hoping I can rest this on here and gently guide it around. If that works, that is going to save me so much time. I should check to make sure that this is square before I do anything. Oh yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I was dreading having to sand these outside corners, but this did so well. I am so pumped because it's done. So, I mean, this is what, like 80 grit maybe? I just need to smooth this out, and then, I mean, this is the hardest part to do, so I am like leagues ahead of where I thought I was gonna be. I just need to sand the top, the back, and then the faces. I am so stoked because that worked so incredibly well. All the saw marks are gone. That saved me so much time. Now it's time to sand the faces. Ugh, sanding. One day I will get a drum sander. One day. It is really cold in my shop today. I was using my Milwaukee sander. It was just taking so long. I don't have a thick enough grit, so I'm gonna use my air compressor one instead. Sanding it with 80 grit right now. Three hours later. The problem with using these types of sanders is they have a squishy surface, and so they don't give you a very square edge. This is called easing the edge. You get a sticky piece of sandpaper and you put it on a rectangular block, and then it gives you a really flat edge. I'm just gonna take this block, I'm gonna put it at an angle on my piece, and then just go back and forth. Now this edge is nice and eased. It does not take much to do that whole edge. I seriously love my grandpa's old brush. This thing is so nice. These two pieces are done. I'm just gonna wipe them off real quick. To finish these boards, I did 3 different steps. 100 grit, 120 grit, and 150 grit. The lower the number is, the more coarse it is. You can hear this is the most grit. This is the 100. 120 is a little more fine, and then 150 is even more fine. I could go more. I could go 220, but I kind of want that hand rubbed look. I'm not super concerned about it being super glossy. I have a feeling I'm going to be sanding these Corbels for a while. Tell me with that, I've got this little detail sander from Milwaukee. Got a squishy pad here. I'm just getting the bulk of the lines out with this detail sander, and then I'll come through and hand sand the rest of it. This just saves me quite a bit of time. Now it's time to do my final hand sanding. And I'm using 220 grit sandpaper. It's very, very fine. It'll get all these little marks out. The only problem is it takes a while. I might need to go 300 or 400 on these. It's just showing a lot of scratches. That kind of rots. I was hoping to be done with this, but that's how every DIY project goes, right? You think it's gonna take X amount of time, and it takes Y. I'm gonna take a break. 1, my fingers hurt. 2, wife and I are gonna go on an afternoon date. Oh, that's powerful. I could have swore I had 300 and 400 grit sandpaper, but I don't. I do have 600 grit though. I really don't want to go to the store today. I'm gonna try to do it with 600 grit sandpaper. It may take me 3 times as long. Maybe you'll see me working on this for like the next 4 hours. Now this looks weird, but it's actually super helpful to have it being held by my belly. The reason 600 grit paper doesn't work very well, it clogs so fast because I'm trying to take off so much material. If I swirl it, I can get it to work. If you think about it, what you're doing with 60 grit sandpaper is you're in essence scratching the wood until it gets smooth. If you had it rough cut from the mill, put it through your planer, and you need to sand out your planer marks, then you'd use a 60 grit sandpaper. After your 60 grit sandpaper, you're trying to go to a more fine sandpaper. So you can go 80 or you can go to 100, and it's got smaller granules, and you're trying to sand smooth all of those scratches that you did with the 60 grit sandpaper. And then you'll keep going after the 60 grit, 100, 120, and 50. Smooth out all the scratches caused by the 100 grit sandpaper. Even though I was using 220, which is great for these shelves that I'm doing, it's not good for this end grain. And the end grain just really shows a lot of scratches. That's why I'm having to spend more time sanding this smooth. Typically with sanding these long boards, you want to sand with the grain, not against it. If you sand against it, then it's prone to showing scratches more. So they have orbital sanders so that you can try to go in the direction of the grain. But with these being end grain, that doesn't really apply as much because there's not really one direction for the grain. It's actually not too bad to just do circles, small circles, or go back and forth to get all those scratches out. This is looking pretty good. You also have to remember when you're doing any kind of woodworking projects, even though it doesn't look perfect, this is going to be underneath a shelf. And so most of the time it's going to have a shadow on it. Rarely is anybody going to see it like that. This one's done. 3 more to go. I used to use this a lot when I was doing wood turning because with the heat of doing the wood turning, it would harden really fast and it would be really good. I've never tried it on a project before though. What's enticing about this is within 10 to 15 minutes, it becomes hard and you can polish it. I only need to do 2 coats of this and it'll harden much faster. Also my basement bedroom because it's way too cold in our garage right now to do this. And this is the only place where I know I can leave this stuff to let it set and dry without my kids or dogs messing with it. It's literally been a few years since I've used this. This still seems okay. You just have to make sure that all of your pieces are dust free before you put this on. I'm using a microfiber towel here. I'm gonna do these small pieces first. I don't have a huge platform to work on. My concern is that if I do the long pieces first and they're bouncing around and then I'm doing these pieces last, that I'm gonna make these pieces tip over. It's already starting to shine and shimmer. The other nice thing about using this stuff, it doesn't drip anywhere. You never have to worry about fixing spots where it drips. It just takes a little bit more elbow grease to put this on. What I also like about this is it does not smell even remotely close to as bad as like polyurethane does. If I was doing polyurethane, to have the window open and probably a fan going, and I wouldn't be able to set the product down anywhere where I just put the polyurethane. Even though this surface is going to be covered by the shelf and this surface is going to be up against the wall, you still want to coat all surfaces. Otherwise, your piece will suck up moisture in any spot that's not covered up. And so you don't want it to suck up moisture over a large space and then it begins to warp it. I'm not overly concerned that it's going to happen, that these little corbels are going to be warping, but I would rather be safe than sorry. It's already starting to soak it up, so I will have to do a second coat. This says you can start handling it within 10 minutes. Doing this is a lot of elbow grease. I'm gonna take a break and come back to it later. I'm gonna definitely need to do more coats. Everything else looks dry. With the corbels all done and the finish is dry, it's time to machine them so we can attach them to the wall. There's a few ways I could have done this. Ultimately, I decided on doing a pocket hole. I don't want any exposed fasteners on this face. I have spent way too much time making this face nice. I don't want to drill through the side because then I have to like cover it up and patch it. I could have done a keyhole, but I don't have a router bit to do a keyhole. We're just going to do a pocket hole into here so that it can go into the wall. I am so glad that I actually did a template because I was able to test quite a few different pocket holes. Typically, pocket holes are based on the thickness of your material this way and not this way. I didn't quite know how high to set this. The first one was way too far away. It actually stopped back here. It was going to have like 3/4 of an inch of meat to even get the screw protruding out into our stud. Then this one, I went a lot less and it was sticking out way too far. I didn't have any more space here, so I drilled up here. I ended up being 1.25 inches. I'm using these 2.5-inch Craig screws. They have a square end. And by doing it this distance, that means it's got 1/2 inch of this walnut meat to hold on to with this piece. The screw is sticking out 1.75 inches. So take out the 1/2 inch for the sheetrock. The screw will penetrate 1.125 into the stud. My stud's not going to be that wide. I just need one good one into the stud. But to be able to test all of these, this is exactly why you need a scrap piece that mimics the same size as what you're going to be using. Otherwise, I would not have been able to do it, and I probably would have messed up quite a few of my corbels trying to get the right size. This is maxing out my vise clamp. I had to clamp my little piece just because there wasn't enough holding power here, but I don't want to mar the face. I just need it to close that gap a little bit. I ended up doing 2 just in case one of them didn't work or I had a little bit extra room. I forgot how close these two are, the B and the C. I don't need a ton of pressure. I'm just trying to close up this gap right here. But it's slippery. I have to put my left hand on it to hold it. Some of these pieces are easier to drill. The left one was definitely harder to drill than the right one was. I've had this Craig jig for at least 10 years. This thing has never done me wrong. The insides of those, they're not all the way through. If it wasn't a hardwood like walnut, I wouldn't care so much. I got a little extension sleeve there so that I can finish out that hole. If this was any other material, melamine, pine, anything that was soft, I wouldn't care. But with it being hardwood, I don't want to risk it. Tried to put the screw in there, it wouldn't go through. And if I did, it would split it probably. I just punched the holes all the way through. Anytime you use pocket holes, typically use this longer bit. This is where we thought last time. Oh yeah, he'd be fine. Here's one.
Where's the other one gonna go then? It's not centered on the bench though.
There we go. That looks centered. My camera's not centered. I mean, it's not quite the same length. You want me to like trim it so it's not the same width as the bench? You're not happy. This is where we were thinking before. Best way to find studs is to use a magnet to find the sheetrock screws. I know there's one right here. Sorry. You can see how out of square the wall is. That's lovely. Well, that's it. I really hope you enjoyed this video and learning how to make shelves by yourself. And I would love to see any kind of shelves that you make on your own. For other project ideas and tutorials, make sure to check out all of our other playlists. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.